Guns and Silver and Knives back with you. Today I'm going to be talking about and comparing some knife designs, structural issues with folding knives versus the original fixed blade knives that came out through history. A fixed blade has some natural advantages in structure, is that it's a one piece typically. This is a full tang model Odin Wolf W1, but that's not important. The idea of the fixed blade is what I'm trying to get at. The design of a fixed blade has strength issues that are obvious. One being that being a one piece knife, you can get a side load on it. I'm not really interested in prying because of course you'll break just about any tip off any knife if you do prying poorly. But say carving inner portions of bone or wood or different materials you're working with, there is no side load on a pivot to cause problems either with the handle or with the action of the knife. So a fixed blade has direct advantages and a disadvantage of having to be carried in a sheath on the hip or somewhere. It's not really a pocket-friendly design. Maybe some tiny ones, but no, the fixed blade design is straightforward, structurally sound, and historically it carries through to today quite well. However, it doesn't have ease of carry, say like pocket carry or concealability. I'm going to go directly over to something I've noticed about the Chinese design knives, particularly budget knives, are all consistent in a truss design that they have. The frame rails, metal frame rails. If I can get this. See, there's two metal sides, rails, typically covered with not a very thick, but a grippy scale material for the knife. And the function of the pivot is they're getting more reliable. There's a good retention on this particular design with a liner lock. This particular being the Civivi Praxis, which is a cool knife. It's about the same size as a full blade, but there's no full tang on this for strength. They're relying upon the structure of the truss, the pivot point, there's a rear bolster of a center mass near the back of the knife can pinch down and hold the structure pretty well. There's a measure of flexibility in these knives depending on how thin those frame rails are, but the Praxis seems pretty reliable overall. Then there's the Spyderco series with the thumb hole, but still it relies upon fairly heavy frame rail system with a truss designed pylons in there, pillars in there to maintain the truss design and hold back side load on the pivot, flex as much as possible, but still it's not as structurally sound as a fixed blade knife, full tang fixed blade knife especially. It can't take too much side or twist action or side to side, which I said earlier that I've discovered the hard way that using these as pry bars is a bad idea. These two, the Civivi and the Spyderco, are really well made examples of the truss design that comes out of China for the folding knives mostly. The NRA membership knife is a truss framed liner lock model with plastic handles, faux wood plastic handles. It's quite budget knife, but still very sound, very stout. Pivot joint is well made, works properly, but it's got that truss design that is, if you sometimes have to remember to tighten up the screws, or these will come loose on you and rack easily if you're not careful, and you can't do much side load on that pivot. And the older NRA knife, this one's 20 or so years that I've had to repair several times with that racking I just mentioned, but it's got the liner material for the frame style, which is the Spyderco carries the most steel in it, has the heaviest design, and hence they're more expensive, of course, and they're more durable. But this I used as a work knife. I buffed off one side of it. I take off the pocket clips on all the knives because I don't like the way the grip is. Pardon me. But I understand the truss design is the most practical and very easy to make, which I have a few still pictures in the beginning of this video show. I applied the truss design to some metal workstations, aluminum workstations I made back when I had a welding business. The bridge design, overpass design gives you good both compression and racking. It keeps the knife from racking back and forth, and of course you don't want to put much twist or side load on these pivots. It applies to everything. Why bridges collapse, right? The buck knives, being my latest acquisition, is the 040 Onset, and it's a truss design knife with modified rails in that. There's a G10 scale which has been determined strong enough material for the side load on the knife, and quite a hefty piece of stainless steel with the liner lock side on the knife. It's a fabulous knife, but it's thin. Buck also has relied on the engineering of the truss to compensate that little bit for the strength of a fixed blade full tang knife, which you can't really compensate for if you want to have a folding knife. The next buck design is the backlock, which is lock back knife, which is like having it coming up with an alternative to a fixed blade full tang knife with that back spring going to the liner lock function, and having a portion of the frame structurally supporting the twist or the flex on the frame, which there's still flex. And I would say of these knives, this pivot point's the weakest of the knives I'm showing, but it's also not designed to be a real chopping, it's not a woodsman's knife per se. This is a great EDC, cut meat, cut vegetables, handles the pocket well, and I keep mine in a pocket pouch. The design is excellent for light duty use and still trying to mimic the idea of a full tang fixed blade. The classic Buck 110 Hunter Buck 110 Hunter frame design is different than everything I've shown so far. in terms of heavy duty structural advantage of a lock back design, giving you the structural design of a fixed blade backbone to the knife, a rear bolstering insert for structural flex, takes away a lot of the flex, although of course the pivot point on these folding knives is the weak link in them. They're not really designed for side-to-side load, and this one can handle an amount of twist to the blade, because if you look at the frame and bolster design to it, it's one piece frame and bolster, brass on this particular model. They make the nickel silver ones, and I believe they also make stainless steel design, machined stainless steel design. But these are structurally sound with the, not really a truss design, but with that back spring, back lock design, makes them near to a fixed blade knife for hunting and field purposes as you can get. Fabulous knives. I guess the issue I was mostly talking about is, well, started the meaning is China. They capitalize on the truss design with the minimum use of material if they can for their knives, which I like. I appreciate that mentality, but they still can get pretty hefty in design, but they're budget friendly for most people. Spyderco is probably their Chinese line. What would they call these? These are their value series knives from China. This is an Spyderco Ambitious model. Great EDC, excellent pocket carry knife. Liner lock, really smooth one hand opening. They're true budget friendly knives to the people that don't have, I mean, this NRA membership knife is an excellent knife. I use it as an EDC. It's actually heavier than my Buck 110 Slim Select by far. It's steel, everything's steel, even with the thin sheet metal, most everything. The scales are faux wood, but the structural parts of this are all steel blade, and it's the carryover. The original membership knife I got back in early 2000s, maybe 1990s. One good thing about these are they're fairly easy to fix with the way they're screwed together, and you can remove or repair the scales on this knife. You don't have to throw it out after rivets give way. The most interesting truss design I have is what Buck did with it, with the Onset. USA made. It's a work of art, plus that backlock design is rock on steady. I don't believe you could get the reliability with titanium. I've worked with titanium most of my welding life, fabrication life. While it's an excellent material for all different structural adaptations, it's minimal and it wears pretty quickly. It's fairly durable. It has some welding properties that mimic steel. When you like TIG weld it, you pretty much weld it direct, straight polarity, TC current as opposed to AC current, and thinner, thicker stuff. You still have a wear wear component, the aluminums, magnesiums, for anything like a pivot point or a liner lock mechanism, steel's pretty much the way to go. Stainless steel, carbon steel, whatever, it lasts longer, and that just little bit of flex, constant flex, is hard to get in titanium. It's either rockin' stiff, or in a different alloy or heat treat design, it's flexible, and it would not be reliable on, I don't believe it's that a reliable metal for long-term use. Novelty-wise or high-end for collectability, sure, make it out of titanium or something real lightweight that you don't really intend to put the kind of work you want to get out of a knife like this. I'm about talked out on that, but I just find it interesting the different strategies companies come up with for their knife designs, particularly folding knife designs, which are what everybody wants to pocket carry or conceal carry a particular brand of knife. All right then. God bless all you knife nuts. Remember that Jesus loves you, and take care.